Welcome everyone. So today we're going to talk about the SpotOn Match and how you can instantly and scientifically determine right fit franchises for your prospective franchisees. So those of you that don't know me, this is me. I am the founder and chief scientist of Zoracle Profiles. We provide psychographic assessments for brokers and for franchisors that will help in determining if someone is a good fit in a franchise organization. And it also goes a long way to predicting performance of that future franchisee. So I want to lay a foundation a bit here. Obviously, franchising has four primary tenets. One is the franchisor has a replicable model. That's why they're out there now providing it to others to build their independent businesses. They've already done some modeling. They know the right markets to go in, that there's enough consumers and individuals that need that product, need that service. And of course, in some cases, when there's a need for a location, the franchisor has also done some modeling as it relates to this is the right location for a franchisee. What Zoracle does is the fourth piece. We look at the franchisee-franchisor fit. Is this the right franchisee for that model in that marketplace in that location? So we would deal with all the issues that every franchisor deals with and every broker deals with, including the issues around the high cost of acquisition of a franchisee and then getting a bad franchisee or a poor fitting franchisee and what that means to a franchisor and cost to train and support a franchisee that's poor fitting, also dealing with all the issues around validation when someone is a poor fit. And as you all know, when the system is validating poorly, that's not so great for you as franchise brokers. But I want to talk more about the broker side of this business. When I first started in this franchise space and in the psychographic assessment business, providing tools to franchise brokers like yourself, most brokers were representing somewhere between 60 and 70 franchise systems. Today, many of you are representing 300 plus franchise systems, and it's almost impossible to truly know those systems inside and out. Also, today, the world is more virtual. Much of your work is done via the telephone and maybe Skype or Zoom or some other technology, but you're not getting the face-to-face in the community that once was possible many years ago. So the other issue that brokers are dealing with is up until now, there's really not been a data-driven and scientific way to facilitate this perfect fit, to give your prospective franchisee the highest likelihood of performing well within a franchise system. So the SpotOn Match recently launched about 3 or 4 weeks ago. Those of you that are already clients of ours have begun to see these matches. It looks something like this. When you log into your dashboard, there'll be a button at the top that says SpotOn Match. You simply then switch whatever prospect you want to look at, and it gives you the top 5 franchise systems wherein your prospect looks like the high performers within that franchise system. But before we get into all that, let me tell you how we go about this for those of you that have a scientific mind and want to know how we know that this is someone that's a good fit for a particular system and also will ultimately have the highest likelihood of performing well. So I call it the KISS method of predicting franchisee compatibility and performance. First and foremost, we need to distinguish the difference between what makes somebody compatible and ultimately what causes performance, or what ultimately is what we call competencies. Secondly, we want to talk about a meta-analysis approach to assessing prospective franchisees. A personality test, a skills test, a cultural test alone will not give you enough information to clearly determine if someone is a good fit and if they're going to do well. And then third, I'm going to talk about how we build those ideal franchisee models using a reverse engineering process for each of the franchisors that are clients of ours and hopefully also clients of yours. And then fourth, of course, is finding a way through the SpotOn Match to compare a prospective franchisee to the ideal franchisee in various franchise systems, the ideal being a high performer. So let's look at the difference here between what makes someone compatible and what ultimately is what we call competencies or the ability to perform. So someone who is compatible is basically someone that is existing in a franchise system and not causing a problem. They're not causing a conflict. There's a level of sympathy, understanding, friendship, and like-mindedness when someone is compatible. However, just because someone is compatible does not mean they're ultimately going to perform. It leads that direction, but it's not the final marker. So we also want to look at their competencies. This typically is easy for you because you'll get a resume from your prospective franchisee, but our tool drills it down a little bit more for you into greater specificity. So competency, of course, is the ability, the knowledge, and the skills that somebody needs to be successful, capable, and efficient within a particular franchise system. So let's separate it out for a second. Someone who only has competency and is not compatible will frequently be a franchisee that is a lone wolf. He's out there doing things his own way. Or he's a renegade. He actually is bucking the system. And you know what? Holly, can you put yourself on mute, hon?
Yeah.
Thank you, sweetie. Or they're renegades where they're actually bucking the system and causing some challenges. The worst case scenario is they are superstars because they have high competencies, but they're not compatible, and they end up being what might be called a prima donna. Now, on the other hand, if someone is compatible, they fit within the culture, they fit within the values, they share the work style, they fit within the stage of growth of a franchise organization. If they're compatible, but they don't have the competencies markers to grow a successful business, then what you have is what we might call a kumbaya or a Hakuna Matata kind of feeling. So we all get along great, but no one is truly performing the way they could. So someone who's compatible will go a long way to having great retention. You're going to have franchisees that are satisfied, they're going to comply, they're not going to in any way go against the system. But someone who is only compatible but doesn't have the competencies will be someone that's a higher cost for the franchisor to support, and obviously can also cause lower performance. So ultimately we want both, right? And the way that we do that is by using a meta-analysis approach. Instead of just using a skills test or just using a values test, we combine 7 statistically validated sciences into a single tool. So if you look at this graphic, you can see that personality in and of itself, like the DISC or predictive index or the Myers-Briggs, a personality assessment in and of itself correlates about 3% to performance. One's personality does not determine if they are going to be a high performer. Same way with values. Values will tell us a lot about fit and compatibility and what motivates and drives someone, and it'll tell us how he's going to spend time and money, energy, but it's only one marker in the bigger picture of what makes someone a good fit and what ultimately will cause them to perform well. So we use these 7 sciences that you are seeing here in a single tool, and we give you feedback from each of these sciences in the SpotOn profile that many of you are already using. We're just upping the ante and giving you also something called the SpotOn Match. So ultimately, fit matters. Fit matters. We want to make sure someone is both compatible and they have competency. This will increase validation, give us greater retention, greater satisfaction, stronger compliance, faster ramp up, reduce costs to support and train them, and of course, reduce our franchisors' need for any kind of litigation, and most importantly, will help with performance. So let's look at the markers that are specific to compatibility. There are 4 primary markers: culture, stage of growth, values, and work style. Most of you that have gone through our earlier training are familiar with this, but I'm just going to briefly show you how all the pieces come together. So shared values goes a long way towards performance because it gives us a basis of understanding one another, communicating well, and whether I'm a franchisee or a franchisor, we're going to exercise similar judgment when we have shared values. Having shared values ultimately is the foundation for any kind of a long-term relationship, including a business relationship. A values alignment builds strong brand recognition. This correlation between someone's values and the ZOR's values, we have seen again and again in my 26 years of doing this. There is direct correlation, not to just being comfortable in a system, but ultimately how well that franchisee is going to perform. Now, as many of you know, we use the Stanford Research Institute model for the logic behind the values component of our franchisee assessment. So ultimately, what you're looking for is a franchisee whose values align with the franchisor. The second component that gives us information about compatibility, if someone is going to be compatible within a franchise system, is to look at the stage of growth of that franchise organization. There are 5 predictable stages of growth according to Neil Churchill and Ellie Grenner, and within each of those predictable stages of growth, there are certain attributes of that franchise system and certain services that they're going to provide, a certain crises and challenges that they are going to go through. So as a franchise organization grows, it's going to adapt, it's going to evolve, the business model is going to evolve, products and services are going to change, the marketing is going to change. They're adapting to the end user demands, they're adapting to technology, they're adapting to competition. And of course, we want a franchisee that fits within that franchisor's current stage of growth and also have the ability to grow with the franchisor to the next stage of growth. So franchisee needs to complement the franchisor's plans, stage of growth, and the market penetration strategy that ZOR is using. Now, we determine what those stages of growth are by researching these franchise organizations that are clients of ours. There are 5 primary markers that we look for and quantify in terms of stage of growth. First, what is the managerial style of that franchise organization? What is the organizational structure and how formal are those systems? What is the major strategic goals of the organization, where they are today, and how involved is the concept originator with that franchise organization? And as you can see the chart, this is Neil Churchill and Ellie Grenner's work that you're looking at here. You can see how an organization changes over time. And just looking at yourself, you can see there's some organizations you would fit in and others that you would not. And your prospective franchisee is the same. So just know that a franchisee that is in step with a franchisor's current stage of growth will prove to be much more compatible, and they likely will perform much better. Which brings us to the third component of what we look at when we are determining if someone is a good fit. We need a prospective franchisee that fits within the franchisor's culture. Now, culture to some degree includes the values, but it's also the environment, the strategies, the best practices that inspire both the employees and the franchisees to perform optimally. It's those things that a franchisor is doing to keep morale high, to reward certain behaviors, and get those behaviors to be repeated again and again.